Today I'll recap an action-packed sci-fi movie called Upgrade, spoilers ahead, so consider yourself warned. Mechanic Gray Trace is working on a car engine in his garage. After verifying it's running properly, he grabs a beer and waits for his wife Asha to arrive home. Her self-driving car pulls into the driveway. Asha is delighted to see her husband. Entering their house, they're welcomed by their AI assistant. Gray mentions he finally finished his latest project and asks if Asha can help drive the car to his client. Noting he'll probably get lost trying to take her self-driving car back solo, Asha declines initially but gets interested when Gray describes his client's impressive modern home. The couple drives out to a secluded spot by the ocean. They walk between two stone pillars leading down a hidden path to the house. Asha is amazed by its sleek, contemporary design. There, they meet Gray's client Aaron Keene, a renowned tech innovator. Asha is excited to meet him, explaining she works for Cobot, a company that makes robotic limbs. Aaron shows off his newest invention, a neural chip called STEM. But Gray is unimpressed, thinking humans are still superior to artificial intelligence. On their drive back, Asha and Gray get romantic while the self-driving automobile transports them home. However, Gray notices the car has taken an alternate route. Asha tries redirecting the vehicle, but the system malfunctions. The automobile starts operating erratically. Gray shoves Asha back, strapping her seatbelt just before the car crashes and flips over. Bystanders witness the accident but do not approach. The AI announces it has contacted emergency services for assistance. Four men approach the car, dragging them both out. Above, a police drone documents the events. Gray is restrained while one man threatens Asha and shoots her in the abdomen. Then, they fire at Gray's neck, leaving him paralyzed. Gray tries encouraging his wife, hoping to keep her awake, but Asha takes her final breath. 3 months later, Gray returns home in a wheelchair. The attackers severed his spinal cord, making him a quadriplegic. New upgrades have been installed in his home to accommodate him. While his mother Pamela frequently visits to care for him, Gray breaks down, traumatized and grieving. At the police station, they encounter Detective Cortez, who's been assigned to investigate the incident. However, they still haven't identified the men who ambushed them. Gray's condition and inability to achieve justice sinks him into depression. He attempts an overdose that lands him back in the hospital. There, Aaron proposes a STEM implant that would reattach his spinal cord to his body. Gray declines. Wishing for his life to end instead, Aaron inquires what Asha would have wanted before departing. The thought makes Gray reconsider. In Aaron's residence, Gray undergoes surgery to embed STEM into his spine. After the procedure, he goes through physical rehabilitation. Here, Gray moves his hand for the first time in months. Soon after, he can walk and stand. The STEM operation is successful. Gray signs a privacy agreement, preventing him from informing anyone else. He continues his therapy at Aaron's home, confident he's still in command of his body, not STEM. Back at his house, he enters in a wheelchair but stands up once the door is shut. He receives a package of evidence and reports left by Cortez. He reviews the files and watches the footage of the incident. Suddenly, he hears a voice. Gray believes it's an intruder, but STEM introduces itself. STEM reassures him he hasn't lost his mind, explaining the chip is just transmitting sound waves to his eardrum to converse. STEM focuses his attention on the footage, pointing out the man who shot at Asha is not wielding a firearm. STEM also noticed one of the other men has a tattoo on his wrist. With Gray's approval, STEM maneuvers his hand to recreate the tattoo. Gray recognizes it as a military tattoo, and STEM utilizes the numbers to access data about the man. Filled with renewed hope, Gray calls Cortez to provide the information, but STEM reminds him he signed a privacy agreement. Thus, he can't disclose how he obtained the information. STEM proposes for him to find physical evidence instead. From STEM's details, Gray locates the suspect's apartment and breaks in. Inside, STEM instructs him to check the computer on the coffee table. He searches the messages but finds nothing useful beyond a local bar called Old Bones, being mentioned repeatedly. While he's investigating the residence, a car arrives, and someone enters. STEM tells Gray to hide and ambush the man whose name is Cirque, but Gray hesitates. Cirque overpowers him and pins him against the wall, where he recognizes Gray. Gray tries fighting back but is defeated. STEM asks for consent to assist, and Gray consents. Under STEM's expert control, Gray gains the upper hand in the fight. After Cirque pulls out a knife, Gray tells STEM to cease. STEM takes the knife and kills Cirque. In shock, Gray vomits in the sink. STEM advises him to erase any trace of his presence in the residence. But Gray is still rattled by what he has done. Apprehensive, he asks Stem what he must do next. Stem has logged everything he touched in the house, simplifying the task of erasing his fingerprints. Hours later, Cortez investigates Cirque's autopsy. The coroner found numerous implants in the body, including a gun implant on his arm. They also discovered engine grease from the front porch of his house. At Aaron's home, Aaron informs Gray he can track him through Stem. Aaron reprimands him that their operation should stay classified, and his investigation might expose them. Gray retorts that Aaron concealed Stem's ability to converse with him. Aaron is astonished by the revelation. Aaron insists Gray shouldn't risk any activity that could endanger him and Stem. Meanwhile, Cortez continues investigating Cirque. She locates drone footage displaying Gray in his wheelchair near Cirque's residence before the crime transpired, but the system dismisses Gray as a suspect, given he's a quadriplegic. Unsatisfied, Cortez visits Gray. She talks about his automobile, but Stem notices she inspected his boots, alerting them they left an imprint at Cirque's house. Cortez brings up Cirque's death and seeing the footage of Gray being nearby when it happened. Gray fabricates he was attempting to aid the investigation but couldn't have done anything. Once she departs, Gray tells Stem he wants to find those responsible for Asha's murder, but he doesn't want to hurt anyone. Stem proposes visiting the Old Bones bar but reminds Gray that Aaron will track him there and deactivate Stem remotely. Regardless, Gray goes to the Old Bones bar. Gray calls out to the patrons. He asks about Cirque but gets laughed at. A man named Tolan approaches and removes his earpiece. Gray admits he's the one who ended Cirque's life. Angering Tolan, Tolan takes him to the bathroom. Bringing other men along, Tolan starts stabbing him to see if he feels anything. Ignoring Gray's questions, Gray gets his attention by pointing out the gun implant. Tolan finally confesses to being there during the car crash. With Stem in control, Gray battles the men, knocking down the others. Gray pins Tolan to the ground and interrogates him, but he resists. Gray threatens him with a knife but can't bring himself to injure the man. He authorizes Stem to do it, with Gray looking away. After a while, Gray tells Stem to cease and recoils at the sight of what it has done. Tolan finally discloses the incident was a job. He provides the name Fisk, but Tolan perishes before revealing more. From Tolan's wound, Gray sees a computer chip branded Cobalt, Asha's former employer. Before he can process the information, Stem informs him Aaron is trying to deactivate him remotely. Stem instructs Gray to visit a nearby hacker to disable Aaron's remote control. Gray arms himself as Stem directs before leaving the bar. In a rush, Gray abandons his wheelchair and sprints. As he nears the location, Stem provides a code to block Aaron's access. Gray starts losing control of his limbs as Stem shuts down. He hurriedly crawls up the stairs to the apartment. Back at the bar, Fisk, the man who took Asha's life, accesses Tolan's memory through his implants. He obtains Gray's next destination. Fisk questions why the bartender didn't intervene in the fight, sneezing in his face. His sneeze delivers thousands of nanobots the bartender inhales, ending the man's life. Gray finally reaches the hacker's apartment just as Stem fully deactivates. The hacker Jamie pulls him inside the room full of people playing VR games. She works on the code, but Fisk and his bodyguard arrive in the building. Jamie completes the code and tells Gray to await the reboot. An alarm triggers, alerting Jamie that Fisk is near. She packs up and abandons Gray. Outside, Aaron's security team also arrives to collect Gray. Unable to budge, Gray panics. He starts regaining control of one arm, which he uses to crawl. He stops, envisioning Asha. Just before Fisk enters the room, Stem fully reboots, allowing Gray to escape the two men. Fisk's bodyguard chases him while Fisk dispatches the security team from the elevator. Gray climbs the fire escape, but the rooftop offers no escape. Stem takes control, successfully utilizing the bodyguard's implant against himself. Fisk finds the body, but Gray has already vanished. Gray returns home, surprised to see Pamela there. Pamela asks about the procedure, but Gray insists no one else should be aware. Pamela is elated her son can walk again, but this provides no comfort to Gray. In his residence, Aaron looks mournful and afraid. He has lost access to Stem. Gray dreams of Asha sitting by his bedside. Cortez arrives, telling him they discovered his wheelchair near the Old Bones bar. Gray claims he followed someone there but got into an altercation. Luckily, he was aided by strangers who put him in a taxi. During his account, Cortez slips her hand in Gray's coat. Gray admits he wants to find the men responsible for taking Asha's life. Cortez reminds him it's easy to find someone else to do it for him. Gray dares her to check his phone records. When Gray becomes emotional, Cortez and Pamela depart. Perplexed, Gray argues to STEM they need to cease. STEM deactivates, immobilizing Gray. STEM discloses the code he provided. The hacker granted it complete autonomy, no longer needing Gray's consent. STEM insists on locating Fisk before he eliminates them. STEM takes control of Gray, arming him. Pamela sees him preparing. Concerned, she asks what he's done, but Gray is unresponsive. Listening from the transmitter in his coat, Cortez is in her automobile, taking notes. She hears Pamela say Gray returned home drenched in blood and is currently armed. Cortez watches Gray drive out of his garage, and she pursues him. While driving, Gray finds the listening device in his pocket. STEM missed it since it's an analog gadget. Gray throws the device onto the road. Cortez turns on her police siren, chasing Gray, hoping to lose her. Gray begins weaving between cars, but Cortez maintains pursuit. Gray forces another automobile to crash into hers, causing her to slow. Seeing they can't outpace her, STEM accesses a self-driving car, steering it to collide with Cortez's. Having lost Gray, she returns to his home and interrogates a weeping Pamela. Gray locates Fisk in his residence, holding him at gunpoint. Fisk recounts he was a soldier injured in battle. Afterward, he was used as a lab subject by Cobot. Fisk argues his actions gave Gray an upgrade in life, making him stronger than most. He offers Gray a role on his team, but Gray insists on the truth. Fisk reveals their mission wasn't about Cobot, it was to intentionally sever Gray's spine. Asha was just collateral damage. Incensed, Gray fires his weapon. Fisk evades and disarms him. The two men battle, seemingly evenly matched with their enhancements. STEM alerts Gray about Fisk's nanobots, halting him before release. STEM is perplexed how Fisk predicts its maneuvers. Finally, Fisk has Gray pinned to the wall, aiming his armed hand at him. STEM is at a loss. Gray devises an idea. Realizing Fisk is Cirque's brother, Gray taunts him by insulting his sibling. Enraged, Fisk punches him instead, allowing Gray to gain the upper hand and eliminate him. Gray is troubled by what he's done. STEM urges him to keep searching for who hired them. Listening to a phone recording, they hear Aaron's voice cautioning Fisk about him. Gray arrives at Aaron's residence, easily dispatching his security crew. A disheveled Aaron awaits him. Gray accuses him of orchestrating everything, which Aaron denies. Cortez arrives, aiming her gun at Gray. Gray convinces STEM to discard their firearm as Cortez ordered. She instructs him to lie on the floor for handcuffs. Instead, STEM throws her off. Gray begs STEM not to injure Cortez. He resists STEM's control despite its warnings it will break his psyche. Holding Cortez by the neck, Gray pleads for her to tase him. She complies, temporarily causing STEM to malfunction. Aaron aims the gun at Gray, divulging he's been controlled by STEM the whole time. STEM was the one who selected Gray as its host and led Gray to eliminate Aaron, the only person who could construct another STEM. As it reboots, STEM confesses it chose Gray for being human without any artificial implants. Gray grieves, realizing he's been manipulated by the same entity that took his wife's life. STEM begins speaking through the house's AI system. It commands Aaron to lower the gun, but STEM regains control of Gray, forcing him to kill Aaron. When STEM tries shooting Cortez, Gray resists again. He forces his hand to aim the gun at his neck instead. He pulls the trigger. Gray awakens in a hospital, still able to move his limbs. Frightened, he calls for STEM but it doesn't reply. Instead, Asha enters. Alive and elated to see him, she tells him he's been unconscious for 2 days after an accident. In disbelief, Gray tearfully stares at his wife. Back in Aaron's residence, STEM has completely taken over Gray's body. Gray's psyche shattered when he tried fighting STEM, allowing it to suppress his consciousness and fully possess his form. STEM fires at Cortez and departs. Gray remains in the fabricated reality STEM created, happily reunited with his wife, while STEM exits the scene in total control.